Hello there, dear psychology students, and here we continue the march. And right now we're going to take a look at anxiety disorders and some disorders that include anxiety as an element. So let's have a go at it. And the first thing that we need to say is that not all anxiety is bad. There is adaptive anxiety. If you are a little bit worried before a test, you may increase the amount of studying that you do. It can give you an alert that you need to pay attention to things. If you're getting ready to leave a club in a tough part of town, it's dark out, and the parking lot is unlighted, and you feel a little nervous, well, good for you. That's intelligent. Look around, be more careful, maybe have somebody walk with you to your car. Be smart. Anxiety can be helpful. But not all anxiety is helpful. There is also maladaptive anxiety. Those of you who speak a little Spanish have the advantage here because mal in Spanish means bad. So some anxiety is bad in the sense that it's not good for you. What if you have an irrational fear of dogs or snakes or cats or heights or water? What if you are afraid to leave home? What if you go in to take a test and even though you know the material and know it well, you freeze up and your mind goes blank and you can't find the answers to questions, yet you know the answers. Not all anxiety is helpful. Some of it is hurtful. Some of it is maladaptive. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at a number of types of anxiety problems that get in the way of living life. What we're going to look at first are the phobias. There's more than one thing to be phobic about. But by the way, you maybe in daily life may use the word phobia to talk about how you dislike or are afraid of snakes. But that does not necessarily mean that it rises to the level of being a true phobia in the sense that a mental health professional would diagnose it. I don't care for snakes either. I'm afraid of them. If I saw one, I'd walk right around it. If I saw one in the parking lot, I'd go tell security so they could call animal control. As far as I'm concerned, that's smart. But in daily life, if chatting with somebody, you want to say that's your phobia, you can do that. But that's not going to rise to the level of being a diagnosable mental disorder. Now, when we talk about phobias, there are three main types of phobias. There are the specific phobias, where a person is afraid of some one narrowly focused thing, such as heights, water, spider, snakes. Okay? There are the social phobias. Social phobias, these are things that a person is afraid of doing that an ordinary person can do with little difficulty, which is to say, do in a public place, such as to stand up and give a talk in front of a group of people. That's the most frequently occurring social phobia. Some people take all their meals alone. They never even eat with their family because they're afraid they'll have an accident with food and get something spilled on their shirt, and that'll be the end of the world. And then finally down there, perhaps the most devastating of all is agoraphobia, and that's the fear of leaving home. And people will stay home for months, years, decades. Why would they do that? Well, sometimes because they have panic attacks. More on that next slide coming up. But right now, what I'd like to do is to stop and give you the chance to observe how disabling a phobia can be. I've got a video I'd like you to watch right now about a gentleman who has a fear of dogs. This comes in two parts, and if you click on the link just above my finger, you'll see part one. Stop now, go back and watch that video, part one, about a man with dog phobia. In part number two that's coming up now, please watch that. You'll see that the treatment was effective and also he becomes cured and is able to function again. Click the link just above my finger. Stop now, go back, watch that video, the link's above my finger in the prior slide. Welcome back. Now, let's review what we've taken a look at with phobias. We said that phobias are unreasonable fears. In the case of specific phobias, some narrowly focused thing the person fears. In the case of social phobias, the fear of doing in public what people typically and ordinarily do, eating a meal, using a public restroom. And last, agoraphobia. Sometimes people become so terrified of leaving the house that they stay home for years. More on that in just a moment. Panic disorder refers to a situation where a person's body starts reacting as if somebody pulled a gun on them, but either nothing at all has happened to them, or perhaps something very innocent has happened. They dropped a banana at the supermarket, and it feels like somebody is getting ready to murder them. And oftentimes, with the first panic attack, the person may show up at a hospital emergency room. They'll get a complete checkout, and the physician will then tell them, well, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is that there's going to be a large bill. The good news is you had a panic attack, and there's nothing wrong with you physically. But if this happens again, you may want to consult a mental health professional. These panic attacks can be so frightening that sometimes people will decline to leave home out of fear of having another panic attack. And if they stay home a long period of time, well then, if you think back to what we were just talking about a few moments ago, now the person has developed agoraphobia, the fear of leaving home. And now we continue the march on to take a look at some additional types of anxiety-related disorders. For example, post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder is often known by its initials, PTSD, and it's gotten some fame or infamy because of its association with the military. And some soldiers do come home and suffer from PTSD. Now, something of interest is this. First off, every person in the military does not develop it. Only about 10% of people do. And the ones who are most likely to develop it are those persons who are in contact with the enemy or where their life is directly at risk. Actually, though, PTSD can develop in any person who is in a situation where their life is at risk. Being mugged in the parking lot at gunpoint can bring about PTSD. Being in an automobile accident, a serious one, can bring about PTSD. Being exposed to a hurricane or tornado or other life-threatening situation can bring about PTSD. First off, an important thing to know is this, is that if shortly after you or someone's life is at risk, if they're shaken up, scared, anxious, that's normal. Okay? When is it that PTSD diagnosis can be made? At least 30 days have to have passed after the scary thing that happened to the person. And if, after 30 days, the person still can't get it out of their mind, they have problems with sleeping, have nightmares about the event, jump at the sound of even a minor slamming door, perhaps the presence of depression when they stop and reflect about it as well. Now, at that point, PTSD might be diagnosed because you would expect that the usual person would have recovered pretty much after 30 days or so. And we do have one other disorder related to anxiety that I would like to talk about, one that you likely have heard of, OCD, which is short for obsessive compulsive disorder. To understand this disorder, the first thing we want to do is notice that it's made up of two words. Obsessive, and the word obsessions refers to thoughts, beliefs that a person can't get out of their mind that trouble them, and compulsions or compulsive. This refers to behaviors that a person feels that they must perform, otherwise some awful thing will happen to them. And this, of course, might bring about some anxiety if some awful thing was going to happen to them. But, of course, the fear is irrational, not rational. The most frequent form that obsessive-compulsive disorder takes is the need to check locks. Now, when you leave the house in the morning, you lock the door. Why? Because the bad guys may come and take your stuff. Now, every few months or once or twice a year, maybe you go, oops, did I lock my door? And then you have to go back and you feel a little stupid. All right, that's normal. But what if before you left the house you had to check the lock 7 times? And not just the front door, but the front door, the back door, the side door, and every window in the house, both upstairs and down. Now that's to leave the house in the morning. After lunch you want to go to the library, you have to do it again. In the evening you want to go and visit a friend. Now you're spending 20 minutes a day, or longer, just checking locks. Now, it probably should not surprise you to know that folks with OCD oftentimes develop depression because they know that their behavior, of course, is out of control and doesn't make sense. No one needs to spend that much time checking locks every day. The good news is that this disorder and all the anxiety disorders are treatable using a variety of means. Another form that OCD often takes is the need to count things. You and I, we walk into a building, we sit down, make ourselves comfortable, and start taking care of business. But some people, before they do anything else, must count all the ceiling tiles. And then, having counted them once, they must count them again because perhaps they counted them wrong the first time. And having done that, then they must count the floor tiles. I think you could certainly understand how distressing this would be to a person. In this video, we've taken a look at 4 disorders that are related to anxiety. We talked about phobias, we talked about panic disorder, we talked about obsessive compulsive disorder, and we talked about PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, here's hoping that you found this video interesting and valuable. It was good to see you again. You take care now and have yourself a great psychology day.